Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC 316, headlined by Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley. We're going to talk four plays like we always do on the show. And listen, Saturday, I will be in attendance at UFC 316. Very excited about it. Love going to live events. Listen, there is a lot of great sports to go see, right? But there is, I would say, maybe I'm biased, but I would say there's nothing like a multiple title fight pay-per-view live. It's just the atmosphere is absolutely incredible. I highly suggest going. And I'm also going to watch the 5% max bet hit live. Do have a 5% up right now. We are about 70% win rate on those max bets since March 2024. We have really seen the board well overall on our max bets. And if you want to become a client, link down there. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley. Now, we have Merab here. He is minus 300 on the comeback here. We've got Sean O'Malley plus 240. Now, this is a rematch from their fight back about 8-9 months ago, which Merab was a 5% max bet winner at plus 115 on their first fight here. And, you know, the narrative after that fight, I thought was pretty interesting. You know, a lot of people kind of looked at it and said, hey, you know, Sean had moments. Sean, kept it close. And I couldn't disagree more. I do think it was, yes, I think it was 3-1 going to that last round. And I think that, you did have Merab kind of screw around a little bit, got hit in the body. And, it ended up ending and, ooh, look at Sean, look what Sean did. But overall, you look at this fight, you look at it, rewatch it, you look at statistically here, you had significant strikes, was 82-47 in favor of Merab. He had 6 takedowns, 10 minutes of control time, obviously a lot of that going his way. And then you also look at the total strikes, total strikes, all of them total strikes was favoring Merab 214 to 49. 214 to 49 in favor of Merab. And I just think that, this is a spot here where, yes, Sean O'Malley is high-level striker, good distance management, good at range, accurate, all those things. But, this is against Merab. A lot of those things may not even matter, in my opinion. And you look at it, the situation is that Merab is just a fantastic minute winner. He's smothering. He's going to push forward. He's going to stay on you. And he forces you to be defensive for most of the fight. And that's really Sean O'Malley, really what happened. I mean, Sean O'Malley landing, 47 significant strikes over 5 rounds. I mean, that's, pretty bad. That's not that very good in a heavyweight, in a title fight. That is just not good. And it just really allowed Merab to dictate the pace. And that's the thing here about O'Malley is when you look at him here, the guy's going to need a knockout. And I think that that's really his only path to victory. He's not going to be a good minute winner here. He's not going to be able to just outland Merab over 5 rounds. It's just not going to happen here. He's going to really have to have these big moments. And the other part about it is the fact with this knockout or having the opportunity for a knockout is very slim. He's never been knocked out in his professional career. Merab has never been knocked out. He's only been finished one time. That was by submission. And that's not on the table in this fight here. So I just think you go back, you watch, just not enough has really changed from their first fight to this fight. What could possibly change? Yes, the line has changed a lot, but besides for that, I think the styles really, it's the same. Is all of a sudden Sean O'Malley, going to be this elite level defensive wrestler? Probably not. Is he going to be able to over 25 minutes get his offense off and be able to just kind of stay at range and do that for the first time that anyone's ever done that to Merab? Probably not. So I think it really sets up a spot where it's very hard to outpoint Merab. It's very hard to win minutes over Merab, where he's just going to be relentless with those takedowns. And you look at it, the matchup is just a nightmare for Sean overall. And you've got a guy who's got the best cardio probably in the UFC, probably the most relentless wrestling that you're going to see in the UFC. He's got insane pace. I mean, it's just, these are things that against a striker, a rangy striker, it is just the last things you want to hear. The guy that you're going against, he averages 6 takedowns per 15 minutes. We know we're going to be getting out of Merab here. He's going to be shooting. He's going to be shooting. He's going to be looking for the positional control here. And I think he just grinds out a win here. So getting off the minus 300 number here, I do like Merab by points. That's sitting around minus 150 here. I do like that number. I think that that's a spot. I think that he's going to stay safe. He's going to get the control time, and he's going to probably have a more dominant win than he did that first time. So I'm going Merab Dvalishvili by points minus 150. Next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Kayla Harrison. She is minus 650 on the comeback. We've got Julianna Pena. She is plus 420. Now, I don't even know the last time we've seen a champion that is, plus 420 going in. I mean, I'm not really even sure that's even happened. And it might be rightfully so where this line is actually sitting here. And you go back, you look at the last 3 fights for Pena. And, the first one being the fact that, she goes out there, shocks the world against Amanda Nunes. Credit to her on that. Although I think that was like a little bit shady of a whole situation there. The whole choke wasn't even in and Nunes just gave up her back. It was just not a Nunes performance. So supposedly she's gassed out, but it is what it is. She gets the victory. Next time around, she fights Nunes and she gets slapped around for the entire fight. She gets knocked down 3 times, 6 minutes of control. 6 takedowns, 10 minutes of control time. It was just a one-sided victory for Amanda Nunes, dominating, getting the victory. But, the most recent fight for Pena, I thought, was another terrible look. I don't think it was that great of a look, even though she got the victory, against Raquel Pennington. And I think at this point, if you want to be considered like, listen, Pennington, she's a grizzled vet. She's tough. She's going to come forward. She's going to give you everything she's got there. She's just a well-rounded, not great at anything. She got her opportunity to try to be a champion and be a champion, all these things. And credit to her, she was able to, do that. But in that fight, it was just a very uneventful fight overall. It was 92 significant strikes apiece, 2 takedowns for Pena, 1 knockdown for Pennington, and then it was a split decision for Pena. But I thought it was just like not the greatest showing overall. And now Saturday, she's about to face an absolute animal in Kayla Harrison, who is just an absolute savage. And obviously the line is indicating that as well. And this is a spot here where I just think that the takedowns come free. I think this is a situation where Kayla is going to get, the takedowns and get the control time. And I think that is available to her. That path is very much available to her in this spot. You've got Pena, 23% takedown defense rate, not that good. And anybody who has looked to take her down was able to take her down. And you go back a couple of them, Nunes was 6 for 7 on takedowns. You've got Sarah McMahon was 3 for 3 on takedowns. Even Nico Montano was 3 for 5 on takedowns. So, that's just, I think, a terrible look. Yes, she's comfortable off of her back. I get it. Julianna doesn't mind being her back because she, believes in her jiu-jitsu. But that's not a good situation here when you're going up against somebody like Kayla, who is just very, very physically strong. And I think that's where this is another just big issue, is the physicality. Kayla, we all know, is just very strong. She's going to be able to bully, I think, Pena anywhere she really wants to take her. I think, again, those takedowns come free early. The ground and pound is going to be there. The heavier shots, I think, are going to be there as well. And, Pena is someone who I think that, when we look at her skills, I think one of the biggest attributes is that people talk about how tough she is. And that's not the greatest attribute, is something you want to bring up in somebody at the UFC level. You know what I mean? Yes, she's got, certain things, but I think that she's, clumsy. I think she's very hittable. I think she makes a ton of mistakes out there. I think she talks a lot more than how good she is. And she's, at another point here, she's got an opportunity to get the title. So, again, credit to her on that. But this is a spot here where I do think that Kayla goes out there, gets those takedowns. I think that, yes, the jiu-jitsu could help, Julianna off of her back and be able to, kind of survive some of the, the early onslaught. I think that's going to be Kayla getting these big takedowns, getting control time, but I think she's going to play it safe. And I think also into this situation is the fact that, yes, Kayla does cut a lot of weight, and that I think is a little bit more overstated, I think. But what it could do is later in the fight, could Kayla slow down? That's possible. Now, I also don't think that that's going to be a game changer type of thing. I just think that's going to hurt her finding the finish. If she doesn't find that finish early, I think that there's a great opportunity here for her to win this on the judges' scorecards here, because I think she can get it. Pena is just not going to defend takedowns. I think that Kayla, even late 4th and 5th round, if she just needs to win positionally, she'll just get a takedown and just lay on top of her and just keep control, bank the rounds, and win the title. So that's where I'm going with this play here. I'm going Kayla Harrison by points. That's sitting around plus 215. We're flipping now a 7-1 favorite into a 2-1 dog. I like that spot here. I think there's value there. So I'm going Kayla Harrison by points plus 215. Now, the next one here we're going to talk about is Patchy Mix minus 180. On the comeback here, you've got Mario Bautista plus 155. Now, this line did open up at a pick'em, and we did see a lot of money come in on Patchy here, getting this line up to a minus 180. Now, I get it. You got the Bellator champion coming in, 20-1, has that sexy record, 15 stoppages, 13 by submission. He does have a lot of that. And one thing that he does have is grappling. The guy definitely, if he gets his fight to the ground, he is absolutely lethal, nasty guillotines. If he can get to your back, he's going to quickly get to it, slick back takes. There's a lot of good things that he does do, but I do think that his last fight was a very bad look against Magomedov. Was just just left a bad taste in my mouth. It was a split decision win for him, maybe a fight he shouldn't have won. He was a minus 350, 360 favorite, and I thought didn't look good. Now, this is the reason, is because he just wasn't able to get his wrestling going, wasn't able to get his grappling going. And that is, now he was left on the feet, and I thought he just looked very slow on the feet. I don't think his striking looked very good. He was on his back foot a lot, and I thought it just a bad look overall. And they look at Mario here, that I think his skill set, really counters a lot of the things that I think that Patchy does well. And one of the big things here is that, in order to kind of keep a wrestler like Patchy off you, you've got to have pressure and volume. And that's really kind of how Bautista fights. He's going to push the volume out. He's explosive. He's going to be firing off the big shots, work the leg kicks. And he also has some physicality. And I think that will help him here, that he has that advantage here. He's going to be able to kind of shrug it off. Plus, I would say, that probably Bautista is the better wrestler between these two. So I think that he can defensively wrestle and create the space and work back on the feet. And I just don't like what I'm seeing at all from Patchy when we're talking about his striking. And then you also look at strength of schedule. And strength of schedule, you've got to go Bautista here big time compared to who Patchy has faced. This is now his UFC debut, a huge spot for him on a somewhat short notice, just was signed to the UFC not long ago. I think this is a tough spot against Mario Bautista, who isn't a big name, but is a lethal fighter. And I think he's a tough stylistic matchup here. And, the money may continue to come in on Patchy because, again, the record, people love betting on these undefeateds or, guys with really nice records overall. Now, does Patchy have a path? Yes. He gets those takedowns, it's going to be a problem for Bautista. But if it gets tough and gets a little bit difficult, I think Bautista has the ability to land the more impactful shots, the more damaging shots, and win this. And especially at this price of plus 155, give me Mario Bautista to get the job done. And the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Serghei Spivac. He is minus 140 on the comeback. We've got Waldo Cortes-Acosta plus 110. Now, this line opened up minus 165 for Spivac. Saw some money come in on Waldo, bringing this down to about a minus 125. Now we got a little buyback back up here on Spivac at minus 140. Now, Waldo, he does have some boxing. That's really primarily what this guy does. He's got some fast hands. You know what I mean? He can mix it up a little bit. Will push out that volume. He's light on his feet as well. So there are some things that he does do. The biggest issue here, a clear issue here, and which I'm a little surprised on the price, but a clear issue here is his takedown defense. And this is going to be probably the best grappler wrestler that Waldo has faced in his entire career. And that, to me, already starts to kind of point you in one direction here. And the other thing here is that, Waldo has had some really good matchups. Most of these guys you're looking at are strikers overall. Over his last 4 fights, he only had to defend 2 takedowns. And those 2 takedowns came in his last fight against Ryan Spann. And that's Ryan Spann. But prior to that, he was taken down 3 times by Rogerio de Lima. He was leg kicked to death. And then he was, ended up losing the fight. And that's his only loss was against de Lima. And that's a guy who, you've got to put stock into that, where his only loss is a guy that actually looked to push a wrestling pace. And I think that this is going to be a guy who's going to push an even stronger pace and going to be able to get more takedowns. And I think this is just a tough stylistic matchup here for Waldo overall. I do think that he does have the better striking, but I don't think that's going to matter because I think that Spivac's going to dive at legs, sell out for the takedowns, look to get the control time, and look to really ground and pound him or hunt for that finish here. And his grappling, I think, is very underrated. He's faced some high level guys, won some, lost some, and it's sometimes it doesn't look as good because he's facing these higher level guys. But I think this is a great stylistic matchup here for Spivac. And you also got to put in the fact of the strength of schedule here. Spivac definitely faced the higher level guys. Plus, you got to add in the fact that Spivac entered the UFC in 2019. He's only 30 now. He's entering his prime. I think this is going to be possibly the best version of him. Plus, this is a great stylistic matchup. I like Spivac here at -140. I think he gets the job done. So there you have it for my plays for UFC 316. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, I will be at the event on Saturday. I will be there, and I will be there to watch this 5% max bet cash as well. Link down in the description if you want to check that out as well. Hit the like button on the way out, and let's do this again next week, and let's cash.